you been, man?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's been a funny few weeks, man, to be honest. It's been pretty stressful and busy and just sort of feeling under the gun a little bit. It's obviously winter, middle of winter here. We had the solstice like the other day. Terrible. For a number of weeks, we had sort of really bad, windy, storm-like conditions. You know, these storms come in off the Tasman and the Pacific and just rip through Wellington. And so it can be quite miserable in winter, to be honest. And then at the same time, I've been doing a few other. I've picked up some more work with my buddy, helping him out with some design stuff, and it's just put me under the gun a little bit with work. You know, work. But in kind of in a good way. And just today, I was sort of reflecting on it, and a few things came to fruition, which I'd like to talk to you about potentially. But I feel like in a way it's kind of made it, the cycle has completed, and I've come through to some really powerful realizations around where I need to be and what I need to do. So kind of through the difficult times, you always come out and find, you know, strength. And
it's interesting because it's a topic that I wanted to discuss actually today.
Oh, really?
So
yeah,
we can touch on that later.
Yeah.
But just you know, what are your tips for getting through like Wellington winter? Do you have so how do you stay genki? How do you stay happy?
Oh man, it's tough, man. It has been a pretty full on couple of weeks, and to put things in perspective, you know, I come back to this old acronym. You might have heard it, like hold on, pain ends, and I mean that's a bit serious, but it is kind of like, you know. You just got to stick it out, you know, and sometimes you just got to wait for a nice sunny day to come along, you know. And it really is that, you know. And I think as I get older, you know, because when you're younger, you think, oh, this thing hits you, and you don't know how to deal with it. And especially if you're creative and you're like, man, I don't feel like doing anything. I'm down. I'm depressed. It's not working. And you think that that's it, and that's all you're ever going to have forever, you know. But I think as you get through it, you realize that it is seasonal. And I was just saying to Rena, we went for this big walk today, and I think we could learn a lot from plants, you know. And in winter, you know, they lose their leaves and they're like, oh man, that must be tough. But it always comes back in the springtime, you know.
Yeah, that's lovely.
And we had just this beautiful, we went on this big walk today just through the city, and it was a lovely blue day. It was a bit chilly, but kind of like, it felt like a spring day, even though spring's still a while away. And I was like, it kind of made up for having such miserable weather, and just because, you know, we are affected by our environment, you know. I mean, you must know what I mean. Like,
absolutely. Like London at the moment is sort of a bit like hit or miss. Some days it's really hot, really warm, sunny, and then the next day, like today, it's really grey and really wet, which is a shame because it's a Saturday.
I mean, to be honest, man, today, so it's pretty much like 8 o'clock in the evening here. And I would say, I was saying to Rena, you know, we went on this huge walk today, and like today felt like what I would call like a perfect day, man. Like, yeah, just one of the best days of my life.
Good, man. How far did you walk?
Yeah, a decent amount, like to the other side of the city, sort of for about 4 or 5 hours. But, you know, and I don't take it lightly when I say it was almost perfect day, you know. Well, it was pretty much a perfect day, you know. We got up, we slept in, and, you know, had a big week, slept in, woke up, had some bagels at our house. I was just doing a bit of Chinese study in the morning. I watched a really great movie that I want to talk to you about, this really great Chinese movie that I found. Just chilling around, you know, with the heater on as the day warmed up, and then blue skies came along, and we thought, you know what, let's go out and wander the world. And I think I've talked about it before, but just getting out of a space, you know, and just going for a walk. And we visited my old university, my old flat. We went, like, did a bit of a flyby memory lane of all these places, and it's seeing how they had changed and how we had changed, and kind of reflecting on that, and just kind of consolidating stuff. It just, it really was, it was powerful, man. So I don't know if that makes much sense, but that was
it's great. It's really great to hear. I'm so glad, man. I'm really happy. And going back to what we said earlier, just, you know, in terms of going through funk or going through a bit of a sad time, it's sort of, it really helps to zoom out and view your life as a whole, rather than focusing on the individual days, right? Like if you get caught up in one bad day or one bad week, you're going to think, oh, my life is so bad, it's so difficult. But zoom out a little bit, notice that, you've got the rest of your life to go. I mean, we're still really young, aren't we?
Yeah.
So we've still got 30 odd years until we're 60. And then, everyone says life begins at 40. So we've got some time. Just take it slow.
Yeah, man, I think it's that kind of acquired wisdom that people talk about, and you pick it up as you go. And I mean, I reflecting on a few things, because I work with quite a few quite young people, just, people in their early 20s, people at the beginning of their career, just through some of these new projects I'm taking on, really creative people as well. But, I can definitely see that I can see myself in them, and when you're starting out and you've got all these dreams and ideals and visions for yourself, and you try and, and you want to see that work, and you can be quite impatient about it.
Yeah.
And I was just, again, there's a number of things like realizations that have come together, especially around my work, because it's all intertwined. But this new series, this New Zealand Nocturnes series, really is an evolution in what I'm trying to do with my photography. And for a number of years, just with my wandering process, that was all I knew. And I tried to make everything kind of fit into this category. But now I realize that, I've been able to evolve it. And so, or it's been able to evolve, I should say. And now I'm in a long-winded kind of way, I'm coming back to core DERIVE and really being able to look at that a bit more objectively, as opposed to when I was in the midst of it, if that makes sense.
You take a little bit of a step back.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously with COVID, it's like, man, I haven't been able to wander around the mega cities like I used to for a number of months, a number of years. But basically, coming back to this body of work, which effectively the epoch has been, laid out for me. There was pre-COVID DERIVE and post-COVID DERIVE, and that pre-COVID DERIVE, that series is done, that period is finished, and that body of work is there. And so it's now time for me to actually come back to that. And I think we started doing that with Wander the Night, the website with your soundscapes and some of my images. But in a way, actually, with the broader body of images, it's like actually being able to look at that objectively as a part, a period in the past,
Yeah. Talking about Wander the Night, maybe we should release something soon.
Yes. What's our next city, man?
It would be nice to do Kyoto.
I've got some stuff for Kyoto. I got some images. I think we've talked about it. I think we've got some ideas for that, eh?
Yeah, I had a track finished for it, and then I'm going through this funny period at the moment. I've mentioned this in previous podcasts, but I'm being a bit too critical on my own work, and I don't know why. I don't know where it's come from, but the track that I had for Wander the Night Kyoto, I was really happy with, and so was going through the mixing process, was going through the mastering process, and then just one day I opened it up, and I was just like, this is lacking something, and I couldn't quite get it. And I mean, do you ever deal with those problems?
Oh man, it is tough. I think there's a certain potentially, because that would have been since you've returned to the UK, or was this?
Yes, that's a good point.
Because all of the other Wander the Night stuff, was that when you were in the UK, or was that when?
All the other Wander the Night stuff was in Tokyo, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think yeah. I mean, I have a suspicion for myself as well, but both of us, being back into somewhat familiar environments changes the approach or the way the creativity flows. Like I definitely, I mean, it's hard to get that kind of sense of awe of being in a completely unknown place when it's a country or somewhere where you grew up. And so potentially, I think maybe that you're being critical of your work because you're in this environment where it's super familiar, and so the experimentation as well can be. I don't want to say lacking, but there's more constraints on what you feel that you can do. Because subconsciously you're just familiar with it.
That's an interesting point. I think you might be onto something there.
Yeah. Like I mean, I have to actively not think. I mean, I have to put myself into this space, this kind of flow state to actually do what I do, because I would never have ever thought I would take photos of houses in New Zealand. You know, there's just nothing. You know, my old me wouldn't have seen anything there, but I have to approach it as if I was coming in from overseas and I didn't know anything. You know,
I love it. I really love it. I'm really excited to see more of this series, New Zealand Nocturnes.
Yes, no, but today we were going to we had planned this out a little bit. I think we were going to talk a little bit about your process, right? Your musical.
Yes. Yeah. So I sent you over a piece of work that I just finished, a track that I just finished. It's like 99% done, and then I just want to master it.
Okay.
So yeah, let's take a listen now.
That's incredible, man.
Thanks, man.
It's beautiful. Yeah, no, I've just made a few notes down here as I listen to it. That's incredible. I'm getting this very enchanted, beautiful kind of vibe from it. It's sort of like, I don't know what to say.
So it's quite a different track from usual. Like, I usually write a lot longer pieces, a lot more repetitive, sort of, minimalistic, but repeating patterns. I like to use that a lot. With this track, it just felt natural to make it a lot shorter. So this is like, 3 or 4 minutes shorter than pretty much everything I've made recently, at least 3 or 4 minutes shorter. It sort of came, I think it was inspired a lot by London life and sort of living on the boat. Being in such a different place has really affected my sound. And I don't know about when other people listen to that, but when I listen to that track, I think it's very claustrophobic. It sounds very claustrophobic to me. I don't know if that's because I'm living on a boat and that has fed into the music. The boat that I'm living on, for anybody that, well, nobody does know, but it's tiny. The boat is absolutely tiny. So it's a narrow boat, but it's longer than it is wider, of course. But it is quite.
Yeah, no, I got I felt like it's definitely a lot shorter than your other stuff, and I really felt the sense that there's these layers and movements that are intertwined in it, and as you go through the piece, it sort of comes together. And so at first, it actually, I've got this enchanted forest written down here, but it kind of, the glimmers of it, and then as you go through it kind of, this thing emerges and there's layers and emotions, and then it just trails off, at the end. And it feels very much like an SJF piece. And I really connect with it. I've been listening to a lot of your stuff lately as well.
Thank you. A lot of Soundscapes radio, isn't it?
Yeah, I've got a playlist of Simon. It just it's quite it's my thing,
Going back to the layers that you just mentioned, I am very much inspired by polyrhythms. The idea of polyrhythms, and it's sort of, lots of rhythms interacting with each other in the piece. Not always in time, not always in the same melody or something like that, but sort of Steve Reich, Philip Glass, and Lubomir Melnik. They all use this kind of technique where you have a lot of overlaying patterns playing different lines, but what they do is they create like a mesh of sound, right? Like a beautiful cobweb or a cloud or something like that.
I love that. Yeah,
it's a nice idea, isn't it? So that's definitely what I focused on here. There's about 3 or 4 layers. There's a piano, there's a bit of my OP1 in there, and everything is just playing its own sort of little tune, but in the same key, right?
Yeah, it's almost this kind of chaos theory thing, I'm reminded of just with like weather patterns and kind of natural phenomena. You don't necessarily have this kind of logical sequence, but it all seems to just work together, like the bird songs or any kind of natural process. It's, as you say, kind of a cobweb of layers. It doesn't necessarily go 1, 2, 3, 4, and the other one that comes to mind is like with the sun, and sunspots and solar activity. Scientists are still trying to find out what those cycles actually look like, because there's periods of like 11 years, and then there's like super cycles, and it all kind of eventually makes sense, but it's not clear until a cycle has finished where those kind of meta cycles actually stop and start. So but yeah, man, it's beautiful work. How long did you work on that piece for?
Thank you. So it took me about, to get like 80% of the track done took a couple of evenings. But like I said, I've been very critical recently, so I worked on the mixing stage quite long. It took me about 3 weeks, and the reason it took so long is because I've sort of changed my production technique a little bit. So recently I learned of this technique that everybody knows and that I didn't know for the longest time, and it's to mix your songs in mono. So, like mono stereo, right? So always up until I learned this technique, I mixed in stereo, and then I found it out and I tried it. So what you do is on the master channel of your Ableton set, you just put a mono stereo squeezer, stereo down to mono, and what happens then is that you have to be really careful about your levels, and you have to make sure that every track in the piece has its own space within the mix, because otherwise everything will just become completely congested and it's like a traffic jam of noise. It's just horrible. If everything's at the same volume, but you've separated it by panning left and right in the speakers, it'll sound good as stereo. But if somebody plays it on their iPhone, or if somebody plays it on a mono source, it'll just sound absolutely awful. And my music is quite I do rely on the stereo field a lot, right? Like that's how I used to write. So my main pieces would always be right in the center. My main line would always be in the center, but everything else is like panned hard left, hard right, or soft left, soft right. So when you've got a beautiful pair of headphones on, it sounds great. But then as soon as you put it on Apple AirPods or put it on some rubbish little speakers, it just fell apart, or it just congealed together. So this new mixing technique, mixing in mono, is helping me a lot. Now, if I put that track through my iPhone speaker, it sounds way better than my previous tracks.
Well, actually, it's interesting you mention that, because there's one of your tracks that I listen to. I don't know which one it is off the top of my head, but it actually, when I listen to it on a MacBook speakers, there's something that happens, and it like reverberates the case or something like that. It sounds really great on headphones, but it just gets really tinny on the aluminium frame, and it's just that one track that does it.
And that's exactly that's exactly it. Yeah. So it's probably some problem with the bass somewhere. Yeah, I didn't level the bass properly. But I'm converted now. I'll be mixing everything in mono.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's a nice little production, hack. And like I said, everybody knew it except for me. So,
it's all good, man. That's sort of discovery. I was actually just curious. I mean, I'm not too familiar with music production, but is there an opportunity to actually mix it at higher, like 5.1 or other, sort of more, with more channels? Is that something you've ever done? Yeah.
I mean, they would totally do that in the studio, right? They would have a separate subwoofer, which would be the 0.1 channel. So when they were mixing it, they'd probably have some speakers behind them, some speakers in front of them, and they could do that totally. But it all depends on your setup at home. I'm unfortunately I'm still mixing on headphones because I'm on the boat. But I did just I brought my speakers up from Suffolk, my little monitors, Genelec monitors. So I'll be mixing with those soon.
That's good to hear. Yeah, I mean, I just think, it could be something in the future. I'm really interested in what it takes to do mixing and video and stuff as well, and just kind of on that next layer up where you're actually in the space, and you're able to play with the kind of the volume of the space, as opposed to the end user being, say, headphones, actually like in the cinematic experience with your music. What would it take to be able to pan around the room back and forth, and so one day
at university we had an 8.1 setup in one of our rooms, and you could literally, so there was a mixer right dead center in the middle of the room, and you could just move things around the space, because the speakers were set up in a circle around the listener, and you could literally move it from one speaker around to the other, and it's so beautiful, man. It was great. I'd love to do that again.
Yeah, no, but that's really cool to hear. It actually reminds me a little bit. So I mentioned I watched this film earlier today, this Chinese film. It's called Suzhou River, or in Chinese Suzhou He. And it's from the year 2000. So the director is Lo Ye. And I just found it actually I was looking at Shanghai soundscapes on YouTube randomly, and I found this really well done, just ambient soundscape of just the sounds of the rivers and the cars and the traffic and things. And there was a little bit with a little kind of ditty, kind of an old song called Along the Suzhou Canal. And that's like a sort of western Shanghai. There's this area called Suzhou, which was quite poor once upon a time. And so there's all these canals running through it, and this little ditty kind of rang out. And then I googled that, and I searched for that, and then it came up with this movie, and it was just it was just on YouTube, like the whole thing with no subtitles. So I watched it in Chinese, no subtitles, just trying to, with my limited language skills, trying to understand what's going on. But it was so beautiful, man. It was really quite a beautiful film, and it just the way the discovery of that, where it was like I didn't actually intend on watching that, but I found it through searching for the soundscape and this ambience.
That's so nice. Is that on YouTube?
Yeah. I think it's not a legal copy on YouTube. I believe it's just someone that's uploaded it, but it is really well done, and it just I don't know, man. It just took me back to the space, because it's kind of got these Wong Kar-wai feel, vibes to it, but it's this kind of Shanghai grit.
Yeah.
And there's just something about it. But the original, like the soundscape that was on YouTube that I can also send through to you, it kind of reminded me a little bit of the Glimmers piece that you just shared with us. It had these sort of layers and stuff, and it just it's sort of like these journeys through space, through spaces, with the field recordings. Because I know earlier on, you used to do a lot of field recordings. And I mean, that was actually something I did, once upon a time as well. I just trying to like bring different places together through field recordings, and kind of merging them together and creating these kind of like new journeys. Do you still do a bit of field recording?
I haven't for a while, and it's always something that I'm thinking about getting back into. I need to get myself a new recorder, but I really like what you just said about sort of mashing or merging two places together. I quite like that juxtaposition of recording like, a busy city street with the cicadas or something like that, and putting those sounds together and seeing how they interact. I love that. We should do something with that. Yeah,
I mean, I'm going to send it to you now, man. Just maybe you could have a quick watch of it, but it really was quite beautiful. I've just sent it through to you.
看我你下不来。到这经过这个。谢谢谢谢。爱我，究竟爱我，为何还要让我难过？
You see how it sort of just pans in and out of different...
Oh, it's so lovely. And the video is beautiful.
Yeah, it's quite well done. So that intro bit where it says along the Suzhou Canal, that I was trying to find that song. If anyone knows what that song actually is in Chinese, I'd love to know. I want to find it, but because it doesn't come up under that name. But yeah, that led me along to find this movie. So it was this kind of like little serendipitous exploration, and it kind of kicked myself into gear, just getting back into my Chinese and just kind of getting into that space. And speaking of that, just another thing I was listening to recently, Rena actually introduced me. There was this Japanese band called Cody Lee. I don't know if you've heard of them. But they create this music video. It's so well done. And it's like pretty much taking all of this, this kind of funky Chinese stuff and putting it into this music video with this kind of really high production value, but kind of I mean, I don't even know how to describe it. I'm going to send it through to you. And it's the track's actually called War Aini, you know, I love you. It's a Japanese song, but the way that they flick between kind of the Japanese and the Chinese stuff is just so well done. And it's just this really beautiful juxtaposition and kind of merging of ideas. And that's something I think Wong Kar-wai really does well. You know, he's kind of got Japanese stuff, Chinese stuff, Taiwanese stuff. And it's all sort of, it just seamlessly matches together. And it just, I mean, it's heartwarming. You know, I don't know how else to describe it. Yeah.
I'm not too familiar with Wong Kar-wai's work actually, but I have watched. What's the most famous one? The one in Hong Kong.
Maybe Chungking Express or In the Mood for Love.
In the Mood for Love. Sorry.
Yeah.
In the Mood for Love.
Yeah. So that you'll probably see some just. From a palette perspective, this Cody Lee song, it really kind of has some of that in there, but it's a little bit younger. You know, I think In the Mood for Love has definitely got that more, you know, that kind of older, more mature feel to it. But in terms of just the palette, this music video really is pulling from that. And I don't know, it really is like, I can see what they're doing and I really love it. You know, it's just like, you know, it's just good stuff, you know. But yeah, so that's that, and then it was just really good to watch that, and just kind of keep in that space.
Good man.
What have you been into lately?
So I just did something that not many people do. I subscribed to YouTube. Subscribed to YouTube Premium.
Oh yeah,
getting sick of the adverts, man. Like seriously, and they've made all the adverts sort of like. You have to watch it, right? It's compulsory to watch it now. So you're just wasting so much time. So I signed up. But my idea behind it was because, you know, say what you will about YouTube, but the algorithm is absolutely amazing. You know, the videos that it recommends to me, the music that it recommends to me, I never would have found in my whole life. So I've been going on a bit of a rabbit hole with like really good music on YouTube, starting off with people that I already sort of know, like, you know, start off with a Brian Eno video, and then you go to the right hand side where they recommend, you know, artists for you to listen to, jumping to Max Richter, jumping to Hako Yamazaki, the Japanese artist, and then it'll eventually give you some new stuff that you can enjoy. But apart from music, I've also really been getting into Maya Angelou.
Oh yeah,
the writer, the late author. I came across a quote that I wanted to talk to you about, and it's sort of something that you touched on earlier in this episode. She has this quote that says, "There is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you." And I think this quote is talking about your potential, right? Reaching your full potential as a human. And this is something that I started to think a lot about over the last couple of weeks. And like, how do we know? How do you know, Cody? How do I know if I'm reaching my full potential or not? What does it mean? What does it look like to reach my full potential?
Yeah, that's a good one, man. I really feel you. I think coming back to this seasonal analogy, you know, the moon cycles and the waxing and the waning, I feel like sometimes we know, you know, when we're on it, you know, and we're heading the right direction. But then other times, you know, we let ourselves drift a little bit away, you know, sort of to starboard or to port, and we're getting a little bit, you know, away from that direction that we know that we need to be on. And I think deep down, if we really sit and meditate on the idea, we kind of know what it is we need to do.
The feeling.
And yeah, like, I mean, to give you a concrete example, I've started working, well, I've got a number of things that I do, as you know, but I've started working with a buddy of mine, and we're doing some design stuff, and it's really cool work. But at the same time, it's taking up a lot of time, and it's time that I used to kind of just have available, just as kind of a just, you know, it was like an estuary. The water, the tide came in, the tide comes out. But sometimes I'd do stuff in that time, sometimes I wouldn't. But it was always there. But now that I haven't got that time, I'm starting to realize, like, man, I'm just going to work, work, coming home. And unless I actively work on my own stuff, it's not going to get done.
Yeah.
And I know there's a number of works, a number of stories that are, it's inside me, as Maya says, and it's kind of like, it is a burden, and I have to get it out. And the more I think about it, it's like, trying to structure my life to be able to do that, which isn't really the most effective way, from the kind of, financial or just general advice. People are like, well, you got to live. But at the same time, sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. I don't know. It was a little bit, it seemed like it was almost easier when the choice wasn't there, when I was, just starting out, and I kind of, even if I wanted to, I wasn't able to, I had to just do the thing that I needed to do, because I didn't have anything else to do,
Yeah.
But when you get a bit older and you're like, well, actually, I've got responsibilities, I've got to work, I've got to do this and that. It can be frustrating, man. Like, and it sounds a bit funny, but that's kind of the world we live in now, where you got, the kind of proletarian mode of creation, where you just go and work and you go home and you just consume and da-da-da. It's like, man, human potential is, beyond that. I think it's available for everyone. It's there, but it might not necessarily be available for everyone. It's hard. So, I don't know, man. What do you think?
Do you think it's not available for everyone, or do you think it's just that some people don't have the energy or the determination to try? Like, do you think that everybody could be an artist in the world and there are people that just don't try? Or is it that there really are people who are artists and people who aren't?
Oh, yeah. I don't even know if I consider myself an artist, man. Like, seriously, like, I think there's a number of things. So, like, I always come back to, like, I think about my grandmother. Like, we were staying with my grandparents for a while. Bless their souls. They're sort of, 80, 85, still sort of, pottering around, and I love them both dearly, both my grandparents. But I look at the world that they grew up in, and having spent 6 months living with them during lockdown, unintended to be stuck there, but, getting to know them and that, I was like, man, this world, the universe that they grew up in was so profoundly different to the one that we have today. That, I don't know, I'm not, it's difficult to be judgmental on it, it's like, man, that the world that they were in, where, because, they don't really necessarily have creative pursuits like we do, but at the same time, my grandmother loves knitting, she loves creating little scarves and things, and it's like, man, how many people can knit, with wool? It's just like this dying skill. And so, there's absolutely, there's nothing else creative, but it's like the fact that she's doing that, it's like this most beautiful thing. And I had sort of ignored it for so long. I thought it was pretty normal, but it's like, man, in 10, 15 years, you're going to have nobody who knows how to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Seriously. And stuff like that, which is like, you look at it in perspective, and it's like they've, and because they work their whole lives, just working class people. And at the same time, within that, they found this ability to do something creative,
It's nice, isn't it? And it's very honest way of living.
At the same time, I think that the artist, kind of trying to be this thing, it's almost like a product of this kind of world we're in, this super connected digital world where everyone has to be an entrepreneur, and or everyone has to be a social media brand, and and it's like, man, that's kind of bullshit. It
really is, isn't it?
When it becomes obvious to you, and when you see it, you're like, yeah, this is actually not really the thing that I need to be doing. So I know, sorry, we're talking just in parables here, man, but it's like,
fun. It's fun. But it's really refreshing to see people on like YouTube, for example, these kind of big accounts that I watch sometimes, where they are just really honest, and they're not like saying, subscribe now, smash that like button, please follow, and blah, blah, blah. These people who are just being honest and offering what they have to give without trying to shill it and sort of get numbers and this. I love seeing that. That's very refreshing because it's very rare, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna throw you some ideas, man. This is just like a meandering conversation, but I think we're coming into a new period of consciousness in a way. Like, I mean, just a number of guys that I work with, like these young guys, and I'd consider them sort of Gen Z, you know. You know, sort of not quite, you know, but you know, sort of a lot younger than myself anyway. And you know, a lot of them are like, yeah, I don't consume mainstream media. You know, that's what they say, and it's like, okay, cool. And so that, you know, their consumption habits are, even though, you know, people could be like, it's the TikTok generation, it's like at the same time their consumption habits seem to be maybe a bit different, a bit more selective. I don't know. And yeah, there is this kind of desire for authenticity. I think it's an ongoing thing, you know.
Well, we're swinging back the other way because we had so long of everybody faking their lives on social media, right? Everything is fake. Yeah. So now we're swinging back the other way, possibly.
Yeah. And I think the other component of it, which I was reflecting on today as well, is like, just with this New Zealand Nocturnes show coming up in October, you know, so many things have fallen into place, which I can't go into detail just yet, but, you know, a lot of stuff's coming together for it, which, you know, 2 or 3 years ago, if I had been in the same position with the same venue, with the same stuff happening, you know, I wouldn't have believed it. But it just has seemed to have happened in just the most natural way. You know, everything has kind of fallen into place. Almost effortlessly, and not that it was effortlessly, but it feels like that because it always used to be a struggle, and I was trying to be this thing, and now that I'm doing this work that's really, I'm being really honest about my work. I'm not trying to be anything that I'm not. It feels like it's almost easier, and people respond to that and come into that. And not to be too hard on my previous self, you know, but I think there were glimmers of hope in the old work, and I still look back on it fondly. But at the same time, where I'm taking it now, it's like it feels like it's coming together.
Well, that was your foundation, man. That's what led you to this point, isn't it?
Yeah, and but again, it was what it needed to be at the time. But now it couldn't just be that forever, you know. And I think, you know, and it's natural for things to evolve. They want to evolve. And so, so I don't know, man, that's sort of just musings.
I love it. But I want to tell you something, quite interesting experience that happened to me recently. So a couple of months ago, I was back in Suffolk, and I got this email from an artist. He was a student in New York. And I'm really sorry if you're listening, but I'm not dissing you, but the experience was pretty wild. So he emailed me, and he said, "Oh, I really love your music. I'd really like to use it in my final year piece, final year video." And I said, yeah, sure. Like, I'm all up for supporting students, because if, you know, back when I was a student, I would have loved it if I could have used, you know, somebody's music that I really liked. So I said yes to him, but, you know, please put my name in the credits or give my website name, something like that at least. And he agreed. And I said, please send me the video once it's done. So he went away for a couple of weeks making this video, and didn't tell me anything about the video itself. But 3 weeks later, he emails me back, and he says, it's finished. The video's finished. My class loved it. My lecturer loved it. I got a really good grade, blah, blah, blah. Here's the final video. So I opened it up, and it was almost an exact copy of Benjamin Bardot's Paris scenes. Oh, yeah. Like almost scene for scene, carbon copy. And I thought, okay, right, that's a bit too close for comfort. And then I realized that the song he'd used in the video, my song that he'd used in the video, was not the song that he requested. Like when he emailed me the first time, he said, "Oh, I really like your song. the Cloud Nocturnes. He wanted to use one of the Cloud Nocturnes pieces. So I sent it over to him in high quality, but he'd actually ended up using Ascension.
Oh, yeah.
He's just taken it from the Benjamin Bardo video, because Benjamin has also used Ascension in one of his pieces.
Yeah.
So I was so shocked at this experience. Like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
To be fair, to credit him, he did credit Benjamin Bardo at the end of the video. He said inspired by, but Cody, this was like this was literally Benjamin's video, like almost 100% with another track that I hadn't sent him. And it just sort of, I thought about it and I was like, yeah, you know, I should be careful in the future.
Yeah, man. It's tough, man. I mean, I love Benjamin. He's the OG.
Yeah.
I'm keen to catch up with him sometime when I'm over there.
Guy.
But I think, I mean, fuck it, it's hard, man. And when you're a student, you know, they drill it into you, getting references and kind of pulling it in and making mood boards and da-da-da. And maybe, and people don't know anything. Man, I didn't know anything when I was a student, you know. And in a way, it's like, yeah, it's a carbon copy, you know. But yeah, if it's a bit too close for comfort, that's yeah.
It was a shame. It was such an interesting experience. I was like, you know, I've thrown this guy, well, you know, I've done him a favor. So I sent him high quality music of the song that he asked for, and then he just ripped some other track of mine from YouTube. It's a little bit sort of cheeky.
Yeah, I mean, I think at a high level, what I was actually thinking about something similar today, but ultimately, you know, I see myself as a bit of an artisan in a way. Like the commercial work, the commercial space has never really super interested me. And what I mean by that is I've done commercial photography, I've done commercial projects, I've done commercial design of stuff. And often it's pretty cool and I've worked with some really cool people, but I've had other experiences where it kind of sucks. Because it's just like you're in this machine. It's like, oh, we just kind of want something that kind of looks like this. We don't necessarily want you, but you're the guy that came up and that's the guy we want. You know, or that's the thing we want. And it's not Cody. It's just like this kind of idea. And, you know, working with companies and art directors and people who are like, yeah, just give me something like that. You know, give me the Pinterest, you know, here's kind of what we want, go. And I realized it's like, yeah, that's kind of not me, guys, you know. And I always say to Rena, it's like, man, I didn't even like fashion. It's like this new world concept, like fashion and commercial stuff wasn't something that I was aware of until I landed in Tokyo. I spent my entire youth, we call it a bogan. I don't know what you say in the UK, but you know,
you said chav.
Oh, maybe chav. I mean, not in a in the sense of an annoying kind of a thing, but just like you know, blissfully unaware of, you know, very Arcadian, you know, sort of wandering around the hills, you know, fishing and hunting. And maybe it's more like a Hobbit thing. Maybe that's probably the better way of thinking about it, but a very Hobbit lifestyle that we had growing up. And then it's like, yeah, now we're in the city. And it's like, and so in that way, there's this kind of lack of, I mean, I think we might talk about this last time. It's the same with like Katsuhiro Otomo. You know, he came from the countryside. He moved to Tokyo, and he's like, oh wow. So it was all new for him. Yeah. But for me, it's like, oh, you know, I'm quite sensitive to things, and so yeah, someone ripping the stuff like that, ripping stuff off. It's like, yeah, that's not really comfortable.
Yeah. But maybe he's a bogan. Maybe he's a hobbit.
Oh, no. I mean, maybe he's the opposite, you know, like the city slicker. He's like, yeah, just pull in the references, man, mood board it, get it done, shit it out, and move on to the next thing. And that commercial movement where it's like the pace is important. I don't know. I've always found that a little bit uncomfortable and really hard to, I don't know, kind of, you know, connect with. You know, like, because I get other projects come in where it's like, this is me. They want me, that we've talked about it. They get the concept. They get what I'm trying to do. And in a way, I've really been able to formalize that because I didn't have the language for that. Prior to Danchi, I didn't really have the language for trying to talk about what I'm trying to do. And even with Danchi, it kind of came out, but it wasn't necessarily formalized. I think over the years, I've kind of looked back on it like this idea of places and home and wandering, it's kind of coming together. But what's been really powerful with this New Zealand stuff is it's like kind of got the concept is just so, like I spend hours working on these concepts and trying to connect the images and trying to make it work, and how how the images talk to each other. Whereas I think if I was just go, okay, mood board A, mood board B, let's go, and push it out, it almost feels a bit sort of superficial. And so potentially, because I know Benjamin is just an incredibly intelligent guy. He's so creative, and what he's done with, because I know the exact video you're talking about, the way that, the concept of like the points and the point clouds and it all connecting together is something that is inspiring for me, playing around with that idea. And I know that he's deep into that. He's got a concept that it stands up to scrutiny.
Yeah, he does.
You know what I mean? But whereas if you're just, we're going to do something kind of like that, and maybe, I don't know, maybe I feel a bit guilty of that sometimes. It's like, we're just going to go do something, but we haven't really got the concept to back it up. And it looks cool and it's flashy and it works, but it's also like, it doesn't really sit on the same level.
It's shallow.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing. I think we all go through that phase where it's like, we're just trying to, create. But I think as the journey goes on, you want to bring meaning into it and you want to take it to the next level.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know.
No, that's great. And I realized halfway through that that you're actually really, really good at talking about your work. And I've known that, since I met you 4 years ago. You are you have a skill at really, really being able to talk about your work very well and to like captivate your listener. So my question is like, is that natural for you? Or do you have to sort of sit down and flesh out your ideas that you want to talk about next time you meet somebody to talk about your work?
Well, I kind of, maybe if I was to pin it on anything, coming back to this Hobbit analogy, I like to think that I'm very naive and a straight shooter. And this has some interesting consequences sometimes, but again, man, it's like, man, I don't understand the politics of things sometimes. I just go out and do my thing, and it's kind of like this happy-go-lucky, and it's like, well, this is what I'm doing. I'm going out and I talk about it and I narrate it. I don't let myself get too bound up in it, I guess. I just kind of let it flow.
It's natural.
Yeah, maybe. Yes, maybe. And when you're also, I guess, connecting with people who are in that space, I've got friends working in, curation and fine arts and the creative field. You do learn to talk about the work. There's certain words, and there's almost a language, like a lingo for talking about creative work, which maybe the general public isn't aware of. But you can target it to different people. But if you are talking with other creatives, you can bust out ideation, concepts, different things that, don't mean anything to the general public, but
I love it. Iconoclast.
Yeah.
That's what everyone says, isn't it?
Yeah. But look, man, sorry, getting back to the Benjamin thing, like, oh man, it is hard because I feel like maybe I've been that student before, to be honest.
I think we all have, though. I think we've all been that.
Yeah. And I think I've taken it. I've taken things and I've played with them, but I don't know. I guess it takes a certain kind of thing to be like, yeah, but this is mine. Like it's like you kind of know when it's derivative. How do you feel about it?
I guess like going through university, I remember what it was like to have all of this inspiration suddenly thrown at you. Because you're in this inspiring environment, you've got like libraries of books and videos and interesting music to listen to. And suddenly getting, before university, I wasn't getting inspiration thrown at me all the time. So then being in that environment and very quickly you have to start making your own work. It is difficult to form the story, the backstory, the idea behind your own work when you're in that environment, because you are just literally soaking up everything like a sponge, right? So I guess you are kind of like shitting out a copy of what you are most inspired by. But it is really important to remember that you have to, like Austin Kleon talks about this all the time, you can steal other people's work, but you must make it your own. Because you've got to regurgitate it in your own way. You know, don't just copy paste.
I think if I can sort of add to that, I feel like if I was to go back and reflect on what happened, like the Tokyo thing, in a way, because it's, again, we've talked about this a million times, but like, you know, there's millions of people, but you're kind of an audience of one. It's just you looking around being like, what the fuck is this? And so I found it super inspiring in a way, because you can kind of reinvent yourself. You know, you can be anything. And I used to joke with my friends, it's like, man, let's just be, you know, like, let's put on a suit and just fucking walk into place and be like, yeah, I'm the shut show, you know, like, because no one, you know, you can be anything. And it's like, when you're a hobbit, you know, you come, you know, and you come to the big city, you know, and it's like, hey, it can be anything. And at the same time, creatively, it's like you're kind of on an island, you know, because maybe, you know, there's all this stuff happening and you're just kind of like absorbing it, but you're not able to necessarily go and collaborate with people straight away, or maybe you're just by yourself. And I found that because for a number of years, I was just kind of by myself. You know, I didn't really have any close creative collaborators in the first few years anyway. And so I was kind of like, oh, I'm just going to go and do this thing. And I didn't hold back in a way.
Yeah.
And so what it led me to do is, like, very quickly, I was like, oh, well, who the fuck am I? You know, because very quickly the Hobbit thing kind of was like, actually, is that me? You know, what's the true me? You know? And then that came back to this, like, well, actually what I've always done, which is like the wandering, the mountains, the hills, you know, and applying this template to the city and kind of building a bit of a personal logic for what I do.
Yeah.
You know, and it wasn't like, oh, this is cool. It's like, it's just what I do. And, you know, even growing up, you know, and stuff, it was like, man, we used to just go for these huge journeys, you know, just following the riverbank, you know, forever. And it just so happened that I did that in a city, but it was kind of going back to my roots in a way. I mean, I used to go fishing with my dad, like fly fishing, and it's just like, you know, you'd sit there for hours just casting a line into the water, you know. It's just this sublime Arcadian thing, and that's exactly like the way we used to go fishing is the exact way that I photograph. You know, you just slowly meander through a place, you know, stop, set up the tripod, no rush, just take the photo. And then it's very meditative, very zen-like. And then I pack it up and then I move to the next location and I go for hours. I go for miles, eventually looping back. And I see like definitely a connection between those two things. And that's what I was doing as a kid and a teenager, you know, like we just go wander the river, you know.
Well, it's nice to see the epitome of slow life. You know, fishing and photography is absolutely slow.
I actually, I'm keen to, one day, it's kind of funny because I tried to pick up fishing again, the other, like a couple of years ago, but it's hard because I feel like one day I'll come back to it.
Yeah.
You know, when I'm an old man, you know, but for the moment it's like, I'll put it on hold for the moment, but, cool. The other thing I was just going to say, man, like, sorry, I had some things written down here, and I know this conversation is just going all over the show, but I have really enjoyed working with these new guys at this design office I'm at. Like, they're bringing some inspiration to me, and it's just fun. It is, in a way, it is really great to not be that loner kind of fishing on the river, but actually having other people to talk to. I don't know. It just feels like everything's just a lot more solid in a way.
Good. Are you feeling more content, more happy?
Yeah, I'm feeling really good about things, man. I had some brainwaves the other day, and the series is coming together. Everything, in my old work, I've been reflecting on that. Getting into a bit more writing. Yeah, everything. It's kind of, we're good, man.
Good. I'm really glad to hear that, man.
So yeah, that's all of the topics I had. Do you have any other topics? Or
Sick. I just wanted to quickly ask you if you have any email newsletters that you really love to subscribe to. Anything that really inspires you?
Oh man, I kind of like am in this like difficult place where I have like 6 email accounts spread over a number of providers. I started using Proton Mail, you know, trying to get off Gmail, and I don't know, man. I kind of hate email in a way.
Yeah.
Email can go fuck off. Like, I love going and finding people's updates. I love making that. Yeah, and I'm still trying to like wrangle RSS feeds. That is like it was a thing once upon a time, and now it's kind of not. It's
Sort of died a bit, isn't it?
yeah. I am playing around though. I've got some ideas for my own stuff because I don't want to be that guy just creating more, more spam. But yeah, I'm loving audio stuff. I'm listening to a
Podcasts,
few
right?
more podcasts. Just some Bitcoin podcasts and that, but like just then and another one just around architecture and that. But I don't know. I find audio is a little bit more kind of me. So I'm thinking of maybe starting up a podcast more around kind of the DERIVE Cody thing, where I can talk to various people. So I might get your technical advice on that. But yeah, looking to maybe do that and explore some of the concepts in a bit more detail.
Yes, deeper.
But yeah, thank you. How about you? Have you got any newsletters?
I do. I really love Brain Pickings by Maria Popova. It's quite a long one. Like she emails every Sunday, I think it is. And it's sort of full of quotes from her favorite books or beautiful illustrations from illustrated books. She's an absolute genius, and she is a collector of books and quotes, and she's basically creating like a small Wikipedia page in her email newsletter, because she's linking everything together. So she'll start talking about a quote on love, and then she'll say, this reminds me of the quote from Maya Angelou, which reminds me of this quote from Mary Oliver, blah blah blah. And so that's really good. It's quite long. And it comes every Sunday. So you're sort of, if you don't have time during the week to read the old one, you get another one. You're like, oh my God, I've got 2 to read now. So that's very much. But a bit smaller ones. Seth Godin. Godin does a daily email newsletter where he's talking about like marketing and sort of ideas for life and becoming a better business person or a better worker or something like this. And his email newsletters are super short, sometimes just a couple of lines. And it's just like a little idea that he's had brewing in his mind. I really like those. They give me a lot of inspiration. So those 2 are really great.
Yeah, that's cool to hear. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I need to just take stock of a few things, but I am considering just moving towards audio-based stuff. Like, I don't know what it is, but I struggle to just read big text on screens. Like, I mean, I read books all the time, but any kind of like wall of text just really makes me uncomfortable. And email as well. It's like what I kind of like about Proton Mail is like just something about the UX. It doesn't make me want to click the emails and open them up. Like Gmail, it's like this big thing, like new email has arrived. This big kind of, just the way they design it. Whereas Proton, it's like sometimes I miss emails because it didn't even notify me, or it just slips in there. And I feel it's a little bit more comfortable that way. It's like, oh man, I don't care, like just I'll check the emails when I go to the office, But I don't know, just trying to like wean myself off that a little bit, which I think is an ongoing challenge.
Good man. That sounds like clearing your head a bit.
Yeah, just kind of going back to basics. And I had this little phrase which I'm going to share with you, man. And I can claim this one as original, but I think a good creative life is like Mediterranean food, man. It's just basic ingredients, just really put together well.
I love that.
And
did you say that's your own? That's your own quote?
I might have pilfered it, but subconsciously. But I came up with that one just today. But that was just like, man, all you need is some tomatoes, some olives, some pasta, some pepper and salt, some boiling water, just a few things, and it just and I think we overcomplicate things, and it's like, all right, I got my newsletter, and it's like, fuck. It's like, just create some really fucking amazing shit, and it will float to the surface. And if you open yourself up to the universe as well, and like, seriously, man, my curator lives next to me, man. And that wasn't by, that wasn't a total accident, but the universe was like, hey, look, I'm going to connect you 2 guys up. And we just bumped into each other, and now we're doing this amazing show together. And, you and I met randomly. Like, sometimes shit just happens, and you can't optimize. There's no like how to for that. There's no Zapier. there's no Google Calendar event for that. So I don't know, man. You just got to like live your life, be pure, be good. You know.
I love that.
Yeah. So, but maybe we'll wrap it up there because I'm just musing on shit now. But
that's perfect. I'm going to write that quote in the show notes because that is fantastic. Yeah.
But it's good, man. It's good to catch up. I'm really. It's been a few weeks, but
really good to chat to you, man. Let's try again in 2 weeks.
Yes, we'll still. All right. Sweet. See you later, man.
Bye.